Hi, shotties!
I'm Raga.
And I'm Gia, and welcome to Espresso Shot,
a podcast from a Desi lens discussing anything and everything from mental health to coffee.
We hope y'all are having a beautiful day. Raga, what are you drinking today?
Okay, so I am drinking a shaken espresso, not an Americano, not this week. I feel like I kind of hit a point where I was like bored with Americanos, weirdly enough. Yeah. Every now and then I need to like have something creamy to like appreciate the espresso water. But I am very happy with my shaken espresso today. No extra shot, so it's like a little bit decaffeinated, plus oat milk. And it's ice, so it's diluted, so I'm like getting off the caffeine addiction.
I feel like everyone is very happy to hear that.
I know everyone is very happy to hear. I think it's concerning how many people have come up to me asking if I'm okay.
Yeah, I know. Your little quad shot.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But yeah, Gia, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a cold brew with sweet cream cold foam. I was feeling a bit of like the black coffee vibe, but like the weather is kind of weird right now, so I wasn't sure if I was gonna do like hot or iced, but decided to commit to the iced coffee, and it's very yum. It has like the slight hint of sweetness. Yeah, which I like, because I also like my strong coffee, like we talked about last episode too. Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of last episode, that was quite an experience.
Oh yes, the last week has been quite the experience.
Yeah, it's been like so much excitement and also stress. Like, it's very exciting to see something that we planned for so long turn into like a product, basically.
Oh yeah.
And everyone was so supportive. We were handing out flyers at the PCL, which is the library at UT. Also, if you hear me and Raga refer to it as the pickle, blame my roommate Michelle for that one, because she started calling it the pickle, and like, no, we can't stop. But anyways, no, we didn't do it at the pickle. We did it at the SAT.
Oh, you're so right.
Yeah,
we did that too.
We did it at the Student Activity Center. We're planning on handing them out at the pickle soon. But yeah, we handed out flyers to like people, and everyone looked so excited.
Yeah.
And we launched on Tuesday.
Yes.
And we were running to so many people that we knew, and like everyone was just like asking about the podcast, and it was so exciting.
Yeah. And okay, I think we had different experiences too.
Yeah.
I want to say, because I told no one. I kept it on the down low. I didn't even tell my roommate about it. Like, genuinely, no one knew. And then we made an Instagram account. And then people were like, oh, I saw this on Instagram. Like, what's going on with that? And I'm like, oh, shit. We outed ourselves. But I, like, didn't tell anyone just in case, like, I was still in kind of that phase where I was like, it's happening, but it's not really happening. So I was like, if it doesn't pan out, I don't want to, like, be telling people about it. And then we kind of had to. A lot of people were just so surprisingly, like, supportive about it. I don't know, I just didn't, like, expect that many people to be excited, or, like, just as excited as we are, if not, like, more so, to hear us speak about all these things. And it was just really nice, especially launch week, because I remember I was doing like design stuff for the Instagram and our flyers, and I was like, when you're doing design stuff for yourself, it's like a little different because you're like a lot more critical. So I'd go through like 7 or 8 versions, and I'd be like, no, this is not it. So that was like stressful for me. And then but shout out time to Urji and Shreya.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yes, they are our official promo team, official shotties. They helped so much. Definitely eased my nerves, but they helped throw us a launch party.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was so funny because I wanted to have a launch party at some point. And I was like, you know what, like we can do mocktails and like, I don't know, I was like trying to plan it out. And then Urji and Shreya were like, no, you're not. You're not doing anything. How dare you, like, even think about planning your own launch party? And I was like, no, like, it'll be so fun. Like, we can do mocktails. They're like, you definitely just stole our idea. Like, that's what we were planning on doing.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. And then they were just like, just take care of the guest list and like, we'll make it happen.
Oh, yeah.
And so the day we launched, you know, we walk into the Sanjak TV room. Sanjak is a dorm at UT for those of you who don't go here. And they like planned it out, and there were like these like the cutest posters with our logo on it and our like outline, what's it called?
Our portraits.
Yes, our portraits. Yeah. And it was just so exciting to see like everyone we cared about in one room. And then they like had a little mocktail setup, and I was like making mocktails for people because I just like love mixing things. It's very weird, but like I love making things and mixing things, and I was like making mocktails for people, and that was such a happy moment. And I think Orgy and Treya made me, and I know you too, feel probably the most special I felt in a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's very true. So huge shout out to them. They were so sweet. I still can't get over it, but I'm very, very happy, especially to have them on our team.
Yes.
But you know, a lot more, or like more importantly, like, you know, shout out to everyone that's listened in the last week. We've had so many people listen to our podcast. We've been checking the stats obsessively, and the number just goes up every single day. It's absolutely insane. And you know, we realized today we weren't counting the numbers right.
Yeah, we were looking on Spotify and we're like, oh my god, we have 98 views. And then we were like so excited to hit that 100 view mark. And then we're like, wait, we completely forgot to like take into account our YouTube views. And we have like 40 something views on YouTube and like a few subscribers, which is just like, this is happening.
It's real. It is very real. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. We are just so happy that you guys also believe in us.
Yeah.
And we're so excited to have you along for the ride. So, you know, words cannot espresso how much you all mean to us.
Yes, thank you so much for the support. Like, literally everyone who's listened, everyone who's listening, like, right now, like, this is our project, but it's also for you. And so you can have someone to relate to. And just, like, thank you so much. Yeah. All right, let's get into the milk and cream of this episode, shall we? So today our main topic is imposter syndrome and role models and how we've kind of navigated not really having a Desi woman role model like through our childhood. And here's a fun fact, and if you don't give a crap, deal with it.
All right, so we did a little bit of research about imposter syndrome because I feel like we both have heard it a lot and we kind of have said it a lot in context too, but here's an official definition, you guys.
Yes.
So imposter syndrome is loosely defined as doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud. It disproportionately affects high-achieving people who find it difficult to accept their accomplishments, and many question whether they're deserving of accolades. And that is according to the Harvard Business Review. So interestingly enough, we were looking for a definition and we found a little bit of history as well. It's really, really cool actually.
Yeah.
But basically, the term imposter syndrome was coined by two women in psychology back in the 1970s. And it first wasn't even called imposter syndrome, which is actually like important for a different reason, and I'm sure we'll get to it. But they used to call it the imposter phenomenon. And so these two women, Pauline Rose Clance and Suzanne Imes, hopefully I'm saying that right, but they coined this term based on a study that was specific to high-achieving women. So they found that women in the workforce, which, like, you know, in like the 1970s was like still, you know, becoming a bigger ideal, they often doubted their success and found that maybe the avenue that they got their success through was not the right one, or they start to feel like a fraud a little bit. And it's so interesting because it's like very specific to women. I know that now we use like imposter syndrome as like a general blanket term, but back then it was like specifically because you know, when they did the study, they really only did the study for like white women, so they didn't take into account women of color. But they found that women opposed to white men felt the imposter syndrome a lot more, because white men, yes, sure, they went into the industry, they felt like a little bit of doubt with what they were doing. They were like, they hit that learning curve, but at the same time, they got past it very quickly because they had some sort of role model to look up to, someone that looked exactly like them, that they could follow it with like the same steps of success.
Yeah. Thank you for like sharing all your facts. Raga did a bit of research for this episode, and it's all like very interesting. So again, thank you for sharing. You were talking about how like white men have doubt. I think that's just something like everyone experiences. But I've realized like white men have role models since the time they're aware of what a role model really is. Like growing up, we're very aware of like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, other very successful white men, and women don't have as many role models due to the lack of representation, specifically women of color. So we're more prone to thinking our path of success is incorrect, and we have a tendency to doubt more, I would argue. And speaking of like the Desi lens, right? As Desis, we're not only pushed to do better by like our families, we're like, it's very expected. And for me personally, like my parents never pushed the whole like good grades thing, because I was never like an A+ student or anything like that. I was more like the creative kid who loved music, and that's something I mentioned in episode 1 with like my music path, and how I'm a music major, but I'm also switching to advertising. So I was never pushed to do better in school, but I was always expected to excel with my music. And that led to like a lot of imposter syndrome with that, which we'll get into later. But speaking of like role models and everything, when you're a woman of color and you're not really represented in the media, your role model is your mom. Shout out to my mom. And yeah, you try to find a role model within your own life, and that's your mom, because that's the closest role model you can find. But there's also the phrase, don't meet your models, and that's there for a reason. And when your role model is your mom, you're in a way too close to her, right? You see the good, the bad. Sorry, my throat is like...
No, I was thinking about it. I think we both got cold drinks this morning. That might not have been the best idea. But yeah.
Okay, I'm okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the relationship between like a Desi daughter and her mom is so unique, because you see the flaws, and not only like a Desi mom and daughter, but like women of color in general. Like you see the flaws and like how that culture impacts your mother, and you see it firsthand, and you promise yourself that you're gonna grow from it. But next thing you know, you realize like you've embodied so many of your mom's flaws, but you've also embodied so much of her beauty and her drive and her determination. And it's a very bittersweet thing. I will say more sweet than bitter, for sure. Like I don't know about you, Raga, but I've definitely had quite a few moments where like I realized I have the same mannerisms as my mom. Like it was a few weeks ago, I was like trying to open a jar and I like saw my face in the mirror. I'm like, I look exactly like my mom when I do that. Or like I look at, like, I think I have my mom's smile. but I have my dad's eyes. It's like different parts of my parents are in me. And not only my mom, but like I look up to my dad a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also absorbed so many of their flaws.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for my parents as role models.
Mm-hmm.
But also I feel like if we had more role models that were like represented in the media, then we would, like, in a way, I don't even know how to word this, but like we would be more well-rounded because we'd have even more role models. Yeah.
I think so too. It's like the more role models we have that look like us in the media, the faster we can bypass that entire portion of time where we're like doubting our own skills and like not sure of our path. And I think like especially because we're like creatives, right, like you mentioned, and it was definitely the same with me and my parents. Like they were never like pushing me to get great grades in math or anything. Not that it was like, you got a D, you're fine. It was still like, like do your best and try to get a good grade, but more so, it was tense if I was close to failing a math class, whereas it was like disappointment if I was not doing well in like an art thing.
Yeah.
And I think this is really interesting. My roommate actually pointed this out to me a couple weeks ago, and I never thought of it this way, but the way that I guess like my academics kind of work is that it's directly correlated to your professional development. Like your career and your academics are like essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
You learn a lot by being on the job when you're a creative because there's like no rule book, there's nothing. So I think like in that sense you need a role model because there's already like very loose terms and conditions as to like how you can succeed in your field.
Yeah.
And having a role model kind of shows that okay, like it's possible for you to do well, like change something in the industry if you want to. And like you mentioned with having your mom as your role model, I think it's very interesting because your mom should be someone that you admire.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure, right? But at the same time, it's like generationally, we're kind of like tasked with the idea of doing better.
Mm-hmm.
Just, like not falling into the same pitfalls that maybe they might have experienced when they were our age or going through the same thing. And so, like with that, if we're also seeing so closely where maybe they have some sort of flaws, which like flaws are human.
Yeah.
Right? But like experiencing it so closely, we tend to not be able to recognize what exactly they are, where they are, and we start to embody them on accident. And in that case, having a role model that's so far off, that's like kind of like our North Star in a way, we don't see everything, but we only see the good, helps us to become, like you said, like more well-rounded in our career, like how we are as people, and I think that's really important. Yeah. All right, so I mentioned kind of briefly, or not even briefly, this has become our personality as being creatives. But I mentioned this last episode, but just to remind y'all, I am a design major.
Yes.
That is the industry I'm looking to go into. But that makes us both non-STEMs, which I think imposter syndrome is really different for anybody that's not in STEM. Especially, I think, so personally, being in design, it's like really hard to measure success. It's really hard to measure whether or not you've done a good job. So I feel like imposter syndrome kind of affects you in the way that there's nothing like that you can put numbers to. There's nothing you can put right or wrong to. And I think it's interesting because this happens every time that, it's like midterms week or finals week. But I hear a lot of, so like you just have to do a project. That must be fun. But it's like, but I don't know any of the right answers. Like I could not tell you. Whereas, if you're taking an exam, it's like you take it, you know immediately whether or not you're correct. Like it's very straightforward. So I think that really plays into the imposter syndrome bit, at least, in like design for me. Because, it's like a very ambiguous industry to where it's all subjective.
Yeah.
And the way that people kind of critique it, your work, is also very subjective. Like, someone could say that, it's like the worst thing they've ever seen, but it could be received by many communities as the complete opposite. So I think, for that reason, imposter syndrome affects me design specific a little bit differently, and it's really interesting. There's actually like a inside joke that goes around the design community. It's like, if you don't experience imposter syndrome at least once during the design process, you might be doing it wrong. So you have to start with like a great idea, and they have like this thing, I forget what it's called, but it's like a little curvature, like a slope or something, but at the very top you start with a great idea, and then as you're working on it, the slope goes downwards, and then you hit rock bottom, which is like, should I even be doing this with my life? And then you find another idea because you're like depressed and then something hits you, and then you like go up the slope again. And that's like how the design process works, interestingly enough. But it's like become such a regular part of my life to where I'm like, if I feel it, that means I'm doing something right. Yeah.
In a way, I feel like you've almost learned to embrace it rather than like, that's like, I'm using a music term, but it's like dissonance, dissonance between you and your work.
Right.
But then, like, you just embrace it and you realize that it's part of the process, and you move on with it. And I know you've talked about this before, but design is extremely time consuming.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you are either living at studio or like not getting sleep.
Yeah.
And that's because, it's such a, well, this is just like my view on how I see it. This is of course like your life. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but you're catering to the consumer. And in a way, I feel like advertising and also design are in a way like, it's like a people-pleasing job.
Oh yeah.
It's like, what do other people want to see? And that's not people-pleasing in the bad way, of course. It's like a good type of people-pleasing,
Yeah, it's like empathetic.
Yeah, there we go.
There
That's
we go,
the word
yeah.
I was looking for. Yeah, so like, it almost makes me sad to hear that, sometimes people talk about like design with you as like, oh, like it's a project, like fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, yes, it can be fun, but like it's also very time sensitive, and I definitely like recognize your work ethic. And y'all, like, Raga is probably one of the most hardworking people I've ever met.
So
Like, literally, you work so hard.
Oh, thank you.
And I recognize that.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, no, because I look at my Google Calendar every morning and I'm like, someone give me like a little bit of validation.
Aww.
But yeah, no, honestly, it's like very weird because design is like, you put in a lot of time and effort, and people don't see that. So I feel bad complaining about it because I feel like it's not on par with like complaining about you having to code something. But yeah, I don't know. What has your experience been like with imposter syndrome?
I think I felt it a lot when I came to UT. And we use abbreviations a lot in this episode, but for the people who don't go to UT, UT is like the University of Texas at Austin. At UT, like, when I would just like talk to people, everyone just sounded so smart. And I was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like, everyone is so cool and so smart. And then like, I didn't realize it, but like, maybe people see me like that sometimes too. And like, that's what kind of kept me going, is that, we're all our worst critics, and we're gonna be extremely hard on ourselves. But I kind of felt that, and also I would kind of beat myself up for like not getting the best grade on like my advertising exams. And I will say I think I do well, but there's always room for improvement. And also something about advertising, it's that like, it's all about the connections you make. And even though I'm literally in my second semester of college, and jobs aren't the main focus right now, I'm in a club called Texas Advertising Group, and that basically like has speakers come in and they like talk about their advertising firm. I don't know if that's a correct word for it. Advertising company, firm, something like that. And like they talk about it, and then I talk to them afterwards, and I'm practicing my networking. And even though my main goal is not to get a job in this phase of my life, it's very much like, how am I networking? Am I doing it correctly? Again, it's about the connections you make. And yes, this is, of course, very applicable to STEM, but it's also very different. Yeah, and like my imposter syndrome is inevitable.
Yeah.
Like we're still getting the grasp of this whole college thing.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely something I experience. It's a lot of constant self-doubt and feeling like I don't deserve to be here, especially because like I was admitted as a music major, and a lot of other advertising majors were admitted as advertising majors. So it's like, do I even deserve to be here? Like that's a thought process I struggle with pretty often. But like changing majors is very normal.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair to me or anyone else to like hate on themselves for realizing they want to do something else, and if they don't have experience, that's okay. And I don't have the most experience in advertising, but I'm getting there. And so a large part of navigating imposter syndrome for me has just been like self-reassurance and getting myself out of that spiral that I don't deserve to be here, like what am I doing? And the way I get myself out of that spiral is to just realize like a year ago this is exactly where I wanted to be, and I did it.
Yeah.
Like things have changed with the whole music thing, but I am still exactly where I want to be.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I was actually thinking about it just this past week too, because my schedule has just been so insane, because I've been like blocking it out to, I say blocks because that's how it is on
Google Calendar.
But it's like everything's back to back, and I don't account for like sleep, food, those things. I'm kind of just like, let's get through the day, and then we'll add in like human necessities later. But I was like thinking about it, and I was like, this is insane. Like this can't be the way that I live. But at the same time, I don't regret being that busy, and I don't regret taking on a lot, because a lot of the things I'm doing now are very new. I'm like doing a lot more design work for people than I used to. And so, it's like having to communicate, especially with people that are, because I do UI UX design, which is, UI UX design is like, app design, user-centric design, basically. And so whenever I make something, it has to be for other people. Yeah. And the people that I usually work with, like it's very uncommon that I'm working with only designers. Like I work with like people in tech a lot.
Tech bros.
It's becoming an issue because I'm like slowly starting to become a tech bro too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh god, no. That's like my worst nightmare. But so when I like work with them, it's so easy to tell when they're like, oh, but you're just like designing things, which like thankfully has not been a lot this semester. But every now and then it will be like, oh, I don't know what you're saying. And just that gap in communication is enough to make me feel like super, super doubtful of whether or not I'm doing a good job. And I think, okay, that reminds me. I used the word doubt instead of imposter syndrome for a second. Yeah. And that's like a really important point, because I mentioned this kind of early on, but imposter syndrome was first called imposter phenomenon, which I like that a lot better than syndrome. Syndrome makes it sound very scary.
It makes it sound like a medical thing.
Yes, and that was the point actually. So what happened was whenever women started to feel like doubt in like whatever they were doing, their work, people were like very quick to point out that doubt is not normal, you have a problem, imposter syndrome. And like that was like the thought process. And so, like, it was kind of a way to make women feel inferior in their mental capacity.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, I did not know. Okay, because, like, I've used imposter syndrome as, like, a term forever.
Yeah.
Because doubt. Super normal. Everyone has it. And so, like, I'd use it on the daily. And now I'm finding out that it was, like, a women-centered thing made to make women feel less than in their industry. That's so wild.
Yeah.
But that's the reason, like, you know, we need to avoid calling it like a syndrome, because it's not like a medical condition. It's like very normal to not know whether you're doing something correctly or not. Yeah. And I think, you know, in my life at least, I like appreciate the doubt. Because whenever I'm not doubtful and I just go for something without feeling like a little bit of hesitancy, it kind of falls apart very quickly. But then, you know, when I'm like hesitant about it, if I have to think it through, or I'm like, okay, what if I do this and it doesn't pan out, or what if I do this and I don't enjoy it as much as I want to, I always have made the right decision. I mean, knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood.
But, you know, it's always panned out exactly the way that I want it, which takes me back to your point, you know, I'm exactly where I wanted to be a year ago. Sure, like, it might be hard, and there's a huge learning curve, and I'm doing things that I never expected I'd be doing. Either way, I love that this is where I'm at, and I love that I'm learning so much, because I'm always, like, questioning my decisions to the point where I'm like, I can explain things now. I can talk about design the way that I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Raka, you said like a year ago, this is exactly where you wanted to be.
Yes.
What were you doing, like 1 year ago from today? What do you think?
Okay, let's see. 1 year ago today. Today's March.
Yeah, we were in our senior year. It was second semester of senior year, so senioritis was a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I was still doing a lot of design work, but I was doing it for myself. So I remember, like, around this time I was working on my second app prototype, and it was really fun.
That's so cool.
No, it was so fun.
I'm like nerding out over your design things.
It was really cool because I made it for like this fake skincare company me and my friend made for Deca. And
could you talk about what Deca is?
Oh, yes. Okay, Deca. I don't know what it stands for. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. But
I also have no idea.
Could not tell you. But it's basically this org that's centered around business. So there's like a lot of events you can compete in. So you can do like a fake startup, or like you can do financial things, advertising, stuff like that. But it's, if you want to be in the business world, you can go through these events and you get a lot more experience, networking, stuff like that. But it's for high schoolers and it's in college. So if you were a Deca kid, shout out to you, because that trauma is different. But yeah, so I was doing this just because I wanted to. I really liked the company we made for Deca. And I was working on it thinking, I make all the shots, this is way too easy. Like, I can, if I don't like something, I can change it immediately.
Yeah.
If I want something to look different, I can, like, I never have to work with someone that's an engineer to where they have to figure out whether or not they can code it. And so last year I remember thinking, I want to work with people. I want to make something real. I want to make something that actually affects people's lives. And a year later, I'm working with like actual engineers. All I work with, like the only people I work with now, engineers, people in like product management, kind of that realm. But it's really, really interesting because they're all still students. But it's like so exciting to be working with people that are just as ambitious as you are.
Yeah. Because
a year ago, I feel like I just didn't get to experience a community that was like just as ambitious, which is so weird. I don't know if you had like a similar experience in high school, but I felt like I constantly had to tone down how much I cared about something, because I was like, I want something in my career to like pan out so badly. I want it so badly, but other people don't feel the same. But you know, a year later, like everyone else wants something just as bad as I do or more. which like in a way does contribute to your imposter syndrome, because like being the most ambitious person in a room compared to like being in a room full of ambitious people,
Yeah.
you start to feel like maybe I don't care about something enough, or I care about something not in the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, would you say that that is more doubt or imposter syndrome?
I would say, because I think this is like arching over a lot of things. I think in my mind, doubt is kind of specific to like tasks or things that you have to perform.
Mm-hmm.
But then imposter syndrome kind of overarches a lot of different parts of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, where you start to like doubt your entire existence. Whereas like, you know, like if I was like doubtful about an experience, like in design, say I was like making something for someone, if I felt a little doubt, it's specific to like whatever I'm doing, but I still like, believe in myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, what do you think?
I honestly, I think that's like of course this is your experience, you know, like you understand your thoughts and emotions far better than I do, no matter how much I, you know, try to empathize. But I feel like in a way it seems like it's both, you know, like you were saying, doubt is extremely specific to like your moments, and it seems a lot more small scale.
Yeah.
And imposter is like a big umbrella, and doubt is like you under the umbrella.
Right, yeah.
Of course not like you in this situation, but like that was a metaphor.
Yeah.
And it's overlapping.
Mm-hmm.
But again, those feelings are normal.
Yeah.
And I know that we've both experienced it, and I imagine that everyone listening has experienced it too.
Absolutely.
And something I do want to point out is imposter syndrome is different for everyone.
Yeah.
Like we're all different, experiencing different fields and careers and
Yeah.
talking to different people, so it's all it'll change depending on like who you're talking to. So like your imposter syndrome will be different than mine.
Absolutely,
you know,
yeah.
and it also changes as you grow older, I think. Like I think as we both come to college, we've both gained so much self-confidence, and also when we're like talking to people and we're like, oh my gosh, like they're so cool, they're so successful, we learn eventually to like put a slight filter in our mind that's like taking it with a grain of salt in a way, that's like this person is very successful and I admire that, but I'm also not gonna let it diminish my own view on myself.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that brings up something a little interesting that I know you pointed out about imposter syndrome, but it's like people, I think like in the creative industries that we're in, but I feel like this also like reaches other industries too, but sometimes, you know, they may talk like they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But that's usually all it is, just talk. But yeah.
Yeah. Like confidence can get you very far, not just in a creative field, but in any field. But confidence is not competence. And you can be confident, but if your skills can take you further than your confidence ever will. And that's something that, you know, I need to remind myself.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about it yesterday when we were planning this episode out, and I think you related a lot to that too.
Oh yeah. I think it made me think of something so specific, because I feel like, again, like the people I work with are in tech, right?
Yeah.
And because tech is like always changing, always evolving, it's like relatively new no matter what we do. And I feel like there's been a lot of people that I've talked to where they'll drop buzzwords and I'll believe them. Like if you say the word NFT, I might completely believe you.
Oh my god. No, I relate to that.
Because I like don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Or like crypto, if you say any of those words, I'll be like, no, yeah, I think you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And like I won't even fact check. So I feel like that happens a lot, to where, you know, they'll say something that's like relatively, it sounds like a big word, and they just sound so smart. But then I feel like at the same time, you know, you have to work with these people to understand that you guys are kind of level playing field. Like, like doubt is everywhere, doubt is within everyone. But I think the way to work past it progressively is by embracing it.
For sure.
Yeah.
like we talked about it earlier in the episode, but we've both learned and we're still trying to embrace that doubt and that imposter syndrome, because at the end of the day, those thoughts are just motivating us to be better.
Yeah. Okay, so that is what we had for you guys on imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Time for our last shot of the episode.
Oh my gosh, everyone, after the first episode was released, they kept like talking about how much they either loved the coffee puns or absolutely hated them. So I think we should just keep doing it.
No, I know. I shouldn't be encouraging this, but I kind of love the polarizing energy.
Yeah, I know. Not gonna lie, we may or may not have a full like Google Doc filled with coffee puns.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so like if the coffee puns are like your final straw, yes, pun intended, then like bye.
Oh, there we go. Yes. Yeah, I'm not
I
even
had to sneak
gonna...
one in there.
You had to.
Yes.
You had to. But yeah, Gia, how do you think this episode went? What are your thoughts?
I honestly really liked the way it like flowed. You know, this was our first episode not doing introductions like the other one. This is like substance.
Exactly.
Yeah. And is that a word, or did I just literally make that up?
I don't think substance is a word.
Substance?
Substance.
There we go. Sorry about that.
What two words were you mixing together?
I have no idea, honestly. I was having a bit of a moment.
Yeah. It's been a week.
It's been a week.
It is.
Oh my god. I think this episode went really well. I'm really like proud of like the research we put into it.
Oh
and,
yeah.
Like everything. What about you? How do you think it went?
I think it went really well. Yeah, I learned a lot by doing some research. And it was like the bare minimum. You guys, I just looked at the Harvard Business Review. Like that's all I looked at. But it was really, really interesting because I did not know it was like a women-centric thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of was like, I don't know, I got really aggressive about it because that. Yeah. But I also do want to say, last thoughts on imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about it a lot in like terms of career and academics, but it's also really common to feel it when you're thinking about your personal relationships. I feel like that's like an important thing to point out.
Yeah.
But you know, either way, like I think you should listen to what your doubt has to tell you. We take it at face value too much.
Yeah.
And I know we touched on this a lot in the episode, but like really embrace it. Like I cannot stress enough, because once you start to embrace it, it really changes things. You start to kind of see that you're capable of doing more, and it's like you surprise yourself constantly. So
absolutely.
I think overall though, I really love this episode.
Yeah, I'm really proud of us, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me too. Okay, I felt imposter syndrome making the podcast.
For sure. I felt
like,
it too.
Yeah, I don't know if I should be allowed to talk on the internet. But I'm really happy we got to do this, because I know a lot of people dealt with imposter syndrome, at least a lot of people I know, because, you know, we're all freshmen in college, so it's like a very shared experience. But I'm glad we got to talk it through. Hopefully y'all were able to relate to it a little bit, maybe found out something new.
Absolutely. I definitely learned some new things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and real quick before we wrap it up, Rafa, how are you doing?
How
doing
am I
okay?
doing? I'm good.
Yeah.
I got sleep. I have a shaken espresso, which I didn't really. Okay, see, the thing is, they call it a shaken espresso because they like shake the espresso. But like it makes me shake too. Like my hands are shaking really bad.
Two types of shaking.
I was really trying to like keep it under control this episode. I did not get an extra shot.
I'm also shaking. My cold brew is making me shake. I think my tolerance has gone down because I haven't had coffee all week. I was home earlier this week, so I was like drinking my mom's chai. She was making masala chai for me.
Nice.
So yum.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm doing well too.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with the way that this episode has gone, and I'm very proud. Like last night, it hit me that like, you know, we started a podcast and like I fully cried happy tears for like a bit, and my roommate wasn't here, so it was just like me sitting on my green carpet, just like, oh my god, like I just did that, wow. And I was looking back through pictures from the launch party that Reggie and Treya threw us, and I was like, this is me being so happy.
Aww.
And I don't know, I'm just very, very happy that this is a thing. And again, I know we said it earlier this episode, but thank you so, so, so much for listening and for supporting us and everything. Yeah.
I'm glad. Yeah, this was kind of a long one.
This was a long episode.
But we had a lot to say. Here's the thing. I'm not even done talking yet. We could talk about this forever.
We could.
But I'm really, really glad we got to do this, and I'm really excited to hear what y'all have to say. So with that,
have a brew-tiful day. Bye, shotties.
Bye.